Good afternoon. I'm Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times on Wednesday, April 22nd with the Arkansas News headlines. Happy Earth Day. Hot enough for you? That's a small joke. Perhaps not funny if you're looking for glaciers to find somewhere. The big news of the day is not much news except we can breathe a sigh of relief. The Arkansas Legislature formally adjourned this morning. Its business is done for 2015. No official work was done today, but they all did get to claim a day's worth of per diem for driving down here to approve the vote to adjourn, those who did anyway. They could come back sometime later this year for a plan to continue Obamacare's Medicaid expansion. Asa Hutchinson will need to do that for budgetary reasons, but he'll come up with a new name for it and probably add on some punishment for poor people to make it palatable to Republicans to keep the money coming. Elsewhere in the news, people in Little Rock are not particularly sorry that Dexter Suggs was constructively fired Monday as Little Rock's interim school superintendent. They're not very happy that he's going to get a $250,000 severance payment. Most people who are fired don't get big severance payments. They're also not happy that State Education Commissioner Johnny Key, the Republican from Mountain Home, has decided that the money must come out of the financially strapped Little Rock School District's money. This is from a state that took over the school district, that kept Suggs, decided he wasn't worth keeping, and is now going to make the school district pay for their mistake. He was an at-will employee. He no longer had a contract. He didn't need to be paid severance. Unfortunately, there's not much legal action that's possible probably to get this money back. This was settled by a Supreme Court decision some years ago when Little Rock School Board fired Roy Brooks, another failed superintendent. Johnny Key, by the way, has been reported to be participating in a telephone town hall that's going to encourage people to do school choice. As you know, until the legislature didn't approve a bill that would have allowed otherwise, there was a plan afoot to privatize big chunks of Little Rock School District. I think the plan is for there never to be again a Little Rock School District. We knew it. Johnny Key told members of the school district family last night that he did hope to restore democratically elected governance for the district and to communicate with parents. So far, he's not communicating with us much, but there's hope for the future. Perhaps he does mean what he says. Time will tell about that. Last night, the Little Rock City Board of Directors did, as most people hoped, and they did approve, a modest civil rights ordinance with some protections for sexual orientation and gender identity. It's a small step forward. The lack of strong opposition probably is an indication of how modest a step forward it is, but it's symbolically important, and it's the state's biggest city doing the right thing, and that's always good. The vote was 7-2. There was no debate. It was structured that way so nobody would have to go on the record and say something embarrassing one way or the other. The votes against it were from B.J. Wyrick and Irma Hendricks. They'll have to live in history with that. I don't guess they have much sorrow about that. On the same night, the mayor of Jonesboro, Harold Perrin, said he saw no need for an ordinance that would extend civil rights protections to Jonesboro city employees. He said, why? We follow federal and state law already. Well, federal and state law don't provide any employment discrimination protection against gay people. Jonesboro still will not. And of course, the state legislature and Governor Asa Hutchinson have indicated repeatedly they don't want to provide legal protection and employment for gay people. So that's one of the reasons that Little Rock's action, though small, is still welcome. It was announced this morning officially that ExxonMobil will pay $5 million in fines over violations of environmental laws as a result of a federal and state complaint over the oil spill at Mayflower. They're going to take some precautionary measures on safety in the future. $5 million to Exxon is virtually meaningless. This does nothing to affect the pending lawsuits by property owners who were damaged by the spill. The hope is that this perhaps will make it harder for ExxonMobil to restart this pipeline, certainly to carry the high volume of heavy, dangerous crude that they had begun pushing through this line, which has some welding problems that make it prone to split. We don't know if that's going to be the case yet. There's been some reporting recently this week, and you can find links to it online at our website, that shows that the federal regulatory scheme is virtually helpless against the pipeline companies. And of course, that's the way the Republicans in Congress want it. They don't want much regulation. They think that's better. It didn't turn out to be so good up in Mayflower, but in the long run, they say we're better off with less regulation. Other political news, Bill Clinton gave an interview yesterday in which he said, you know, Arkansas has grown so Republican, he doesn't think he could carry Arkansas again. I think those who've interpreted this as saying that we won't see much action in the 2016 presidential race are correct. We're a small state. We're not going to be pivotal in that election. We'll almost certainly vote red even if Hillary Clinton is on the ticket. Tim Griffin, the lieutenant governor, you may remember he didn't run for Congress again. He was going to get political consulting work. Politico reports today that he's going to be an advisor to Mike Huckabee's presidential campaign. If the national media is correct, that campaign isn't going to last that long. Huckabee's been viewed lately as a second-tier candidate. There's something about the national press and people in general that like a new flavor of the day. Mike Huckabee thinks he can put something together. He says his daughter Sarah is going to be his campaign manager. And finally, for a long read, I'd send you to an article in the New Republic by Catherine Joyce about what's no more or less really than human trafficking, the sale of babies into adoption, focusing on the Marshallese community in northwest Arkansas, taking advantage of some cultural misunderstandings about the nature of adoption among this community. It's a long, sad, involved story about adoption, about babies, about cultural differences, and it's worth a read. And it's also by Catherine Joyce, who's going to be coming to Arkansas next month and working on a special project for the Arkansas Times about the child welfare system in Arkansas. I recommend it. You can find the link, as you can on all these other stories I've talked about, on the Arkansas blog, arkansasblog.com, at the Arkansas Times website. I'm Max Brantley. I'll be back tomorrow.